Hey guys, welcome back to 5 Star Reviews. Today we're going to be talking about the Amazon Prime adaptation of The Wheel of Time, so let's get right into it. This by saying that I actually haven't read the books, so I can't really give my thoughts on those. I've heard they're very good, and once I find the time, I would definitely read them. But I was interested in the world, so I decided to give the show a chance, and here are my thoughts about it. I'm going to start out with acting, and then go to plot and pacing, and then I'm going to get into kind of a big category of special effects, editing, directing, and then finally with my conclusion. So starting off with the acting, I have the 7 main actors here listed out with their actress and actor's name, the name of the character they played, and how I feel about them. So I'm going to read off this list here on my screen and then give you guys my thoughts. So Roseman Pike is Moraine. She was great. She was probably one of the best actors in the whole show. She's obviously the biggest name, I think. I think we can all agree on that. And she killed it as Moraine. Very regal, very elegant, very mysterious. There were a couple times where I felt like her facial expression kind of didn't match the atmosphere of what was happening in the show, but I hear that the character she's portraying is very stoic, so I don't know if that's just her acting style or if that's the interpretation she was actually going for. But overall, I think she did a great job. Moving on to Joshua Stradowski's Rand. I hear Rand is like the main character in the Wheel of Time, and I don't really think I think his performance was not up to standards. He was good. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't like he was bad or anything, but if he's gonna be the main character of the whole show, I think he needs to step it up a level. I think he could have been more charismatic. I don't know. Maybe it was the writing. I just didn't really feel that connection to Rand as much as I felt a connection to the next character, Matt, played by Barney Harris, who has some drama surrounding him, which I'm gonna get into. But we're gonna start off with just how he did in the show. He was really, really good. He was probably tied as my favorite acting portrayal in the show. He was, kind of like the everyman, down on his luck. He wasn't super brave. I think a lot of people will relate to him when they watch it because they're like, everyone wants to be Rand, right? Like the brave guy who can take on the big evil bad guy. But most people are going to be Matt. And I think most people realize that, and that is why Matt is like going to be the guy that people are going to relate to because he's most likely the person that we would actually be in a world like this. We want to think we're going to be Rand, but in reality, we're going to be Matt. Also, the way he cares about his sisters is portrayed well through Barney Harris's acting, and just overall down on his nature is communicated very well. So he was great. Going on to Zoe Robbins, who plays Nynaeve. Oh, man, I did not like her at all. I'm not gonna lie, very annoying. I can't tell. See, with the acting, since I haven't read the books, I can't tell if they're portraying the characters accurately or not. All I can say is personally from watching the show, I thought she was annoying. I didn't like her interactions with the other characters. I thought her facial expressions were always just like, I'm mad at everything all the time. For no reason. I just don't trust anyone except people from my town. Which I get, she's new, but she needs to open her mind a little bit. Like, the characters that she doesn't trust have proven to want the best for her. Yet she doesn't really trust them. Except for the next character. Daniel Henney is Lan. My personal favorite, tied with Matt, I would say. He is so cool. Like, I understand that he's not super accurate to the book. From what I understand, he's more emotional. But man, he was just the guy that I think you would want on your side. He is strong. He's powerful. Everything that you'd want in the kind of character he's portraying is portrayed well through Daniel Henney. So, great job by Daniel Henney. Now we have Gwain, right? She was also good. I think she's a little bit underutilized, and I think she's on the same level for me as Rand in terms of acting, like how well they acted. So yeah, she was fun. Her and Rand's relationship, they had good chemistry at the end of the show, not really at the beginning, but once they got more comfortable with each other, I'm assuming the actor and the actress, Madeline Madden and Josh Shadowski, really built some chemistry, and I believe in their relationship, and I want them to be together. So I guess that was a good acting job on their part, but they're not the best actor or actress in the show. So Gwain and Rand, about the same level for me. Now we have Marcus Roth, the third is Perrin. Now, I don't dislike him as much as I disliked Zoe Robbins as Nynaeve, but I really thought he was boring. The whole time he was kind of just like... And I get that something happens in the story that makes him act like this, but I think that you can act the way emotion he was trying to act. This is hard without spoilers. The emotion he was trying to act, I think, could have been acted better. And instead of just being, silent. I think that he just kind of was there the whole time. And this is definitely a writing thing. He didn't really do anything in the show, so he wasn't really given the opportunities to act. But the opportunities he did get, the few he did get, he was just kind of... So him was more disappointing than bad just because he didn't really do anything. He's kind of just there. So overall, my thoughts on the acting was, like, good, but, like, could have been better, but also could have been way worse, if that makes sense. Like, middle tier, like... Door shows are definitely way worse acting than this, but this is not going to be an Oscar-worthy show for acting, that's for sure. So yeah, it was fine. Good enough to not pull me out of the story. With some highlights in terms of Matt, Moraine, and Lan. Those three characters did the best in my opinion. Everyone else is kind of here or here. Moving on to plot and pacing. This is where I think the best word is just uneven, right? Man, the beginning felt so rushed. I'm not going to go into big spoilers here, but basically there's an event that happens at the end of the episode that should have happened at the end of, like, the second episode. This is obviously because they only have 8 episodes. I get that. They have to cram a bunch of stuff into 8 episodes. You know, a whole book gives you way more time to do things, but you need to, like, still execute, in my opinion. Like, sure, you have 8 episodes, and that is a handicap on the writer and director's part. I get that. But I'm still going to judge those 8 episodes you put out. And I just felt rushed. Maybe they could have cut other things. I don't know how to fix it. I'm not a Hollywood writer, but I just felt like it was rushed. Now, the middle felt pretty good, in my opinion. I can't comment on what they cut. But I really liked, I have stuff here written down. I really liked Matt and Rand's kind of journey. I like the Gwain and Perrin's journey. Not as much as Matt and Rand's, but Gwain and Perrin meet up with some people. I'm not going to spoil who those people are, but I really liked their philosophy and how it kind of plays into a very violent world that these characters are a part of. So I thought that was really interesting. I think the beginning and the end of the show suffer the most from this kind of rushed feeling. What happens at the end of the show, the whole climax of the whole season, just happens really fast. And then it's over, and then you're like, oh, okay. You know, you don't have the time to marinate. Climax in the beginning, and the end just feel rushed. So, you know, I think that if they had 2 more episodes, they maybe could have done a better job fleshing out these characters, but judging off the 8 episodes they did put out, it felt rushed to me. So middle was good, beginning and end felt rushed. Now, moving on to special effects, editing, and directing. Special effects, I felt like were really uneven. This whole show can be summarized as just the word of uneven. Like, there are really good parts and there are really bad parts, especially near the end. I think that has to do with COVID. I was reading something how, like, they couldn't do certain things that they wanted to do because of COVID restrictions, because they were filming this really before the restrictions kind of were dropped. And I feel like that kind of hindered the show, but once again, I'm still going to judge the show for what they put out. I understand, like, these caveats, but I still have to judge it, and I think that it was uneven. One thing that really stood out to me is the really jumpy editing of this show. So what do I mean by that? I'm going to give you guys one scene. This is a spoiler for a scene, but it's a cold open, and it doesn't really relate that much to the series, and I think it's going to do a really good job of illustrating my point. So basically what happens is there's a character, and she's young. They're on a boat fishing, then they see something in the distance, and they go to it. But it's cut so weirdly. They put the fish down, they see the thing, and then they're walking towards it, but there's no, like, in-between scenes of them, like, getting off the boat. Or, like, really, as a viewer, you're very disoriented. And that is not the only time that happens. There are many times where I'm like, wait, what's happening to the characters? I'll rewind it. I try to, like, figure out where the characters are. And I think that also has to do with the way that it's filmed. You know, it's filmed really close up, like this, for example. And it's hard for you as a viewer to, like, see where the characters are in relation to the world around them. And that also goes into, like, a lot of the battles. It felt very small scale. This world feels very small scale, like, compared to other fantasy shows. Everything feels kind of small, and maybe that's because of the first season. They didn't have the budget they wanted, but this show's really expensive, so I don't really understand. It just feels like there's a lot of times where it's like, it feels like it's 8-on-8 battle when it's supposed to be like an army fighting, and I don't know why that it really is specifically, but it definitely pulls you out of the show because you're like, this doesn't feel as epic as it should. Also, something that really stood out to me was the end of the show didn't feel finished. A lot of people have talked about this, but it just felt like they just rushed it out to, like, get it out for Amazon, and the effects weren't done. The characters felt like they were on the green screen more than, like, a lot of times you're like, oh, you're on the green screen. It's really noticeable at the end of the show. And they did this weird thing where characters are like fidgeting like this, and it just looked terrible. So I think that this show could do with more time in post-production and a bigger budget. Also, this is kind of backtracking, but I really want to mention this. Going back, there's a character that is introduced, I think, in episode 4, and they just dropped into the show. And I guess they're really important from what I hear, but these characters just dropped in, and I feel like they could have done a better job of like setting him up earlier in the show. Instead of just dropping him in and then having him basically take up a whole episode. Of the already limited 8 they have, maybe the writers could do a better job of figuring out what they want to cut, because a lot of the time I feel like they're leaving things in or adding things in that are unnecessary, and then leaving less time for more important things that could do a better job of like fleshing out the characters and giving more time to characters that needed it. So, going back to the special effects, editing, and directing, really close shots that made it hard to tell what was happening. Choppy editing, the special effects felt unfinished. This, in my opinion, was the weakest part of the show. Moving on to, in my opinion, the best part of the show, and this is just because I have a bias. I love fantasy music, and this show is good fantasy music, in my opinion. Whenever I hear it, especially during epic fights, I'm like, ooh. I start bumping my head, I'm like moving, because I really like this kind of music, and it's on full display here. So, I wrote the composer's name down here. His name is Lorne Balfe. I don't really know how to pronounce names, but he did a great job. I don't know how other people feel about it, but I just love this kind of music, and I really enjoyed it in this show. So yeah, now I'm just going to give my major overall thoughts. I think inconsistency is the best way to describe this show. You know, the acting was great in some parts by some people and not so great in others. Special effects, blah, blah, blah. Most of that was pretty bad, but there were some cool parts, especially between Moraine and Lan. A lot of the choreography they have is really good. So, like I said, there's nothing in the show that's consistently good or consistently bad. It just wavers like this, and I think that's because of the pandemic. I think the pandemic really messed up a lot of things, especially in post-production, which allowed and created this, like, uneven environment. So, with all that being said, I'm going to have to give this a 3 out of 5. With the caveat that I'm excited. I am excited for season 2. I'm really happy I watched this show because I love fantasy, and this show just kind of portrays fantasy in a cool way. You know, it's a unique world that's based off a famous book series, which I'm interested in reading. But I feel like the inconsistency of this show kind of brings it down. And I think that maybe in season 2, if they're given more of a budget, more time in post, more episodes, they can kind of iron out that inconsistency and make for a more consistent viewing experience. Because there were times in the show where I was like, if that was just a little bit better, the show could have been a lot better. And I think that really comes down to the editing and the special effects. And I think if the actors maybe work with the writers and kind of iron out their characters a little bit more, especially Nynaeve and Perrin, I think the show could be a 4 or even a 5 out of 5. But as of now, it's a 3 out of 5 with the caveat that I'm excited for season 2. So, with all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this review. I'm back on YouTube. Hello. I'm going to try to post more consistency, but no promises on that. Whenever I have time and whenever I see and watch something that I find interesting, I'll post it on here for you guys. So have a great day. I hope you enjoyed this review, and I'll see you guys next time on 5-Star Reviews. Alright, guys? Goodbye.